Long and Thick podcast, episode 8, where your two degenerate, coffee-addicted uncles help you navigate the noise and cut through the bullshit in the health and wellness space.
Hell yeah.
We're going to get into digestion today. Just even before we started talking just now, we were talking before, believe it or not. And our goal really is to bring awareness. I think now more than ever, I am aware of how many people are like, hey, let's start a fucking podcast. And they're just like, we're not gastros, right? We are not.
We're not physicians.
Correct. And so it's
We're
not like,
everyday
hey,
yokels
Yep.
that consume things, have to digest things.
Yep.
And then there is a positive or negative result of those decisions.
Yep. And so we want to talk about those things and teach you some stuff that we've learned along the way
Yep.
in our own curiosity and save you some time and maybe help make things a little clearer for how you can maybe navigate some of your own food and digestion related stuff.
Sure.
So
Before you jump into that,
yeah.
our atmosphere.
Oh, yes. Good call out. I'm such a terrible brother. The new space, as I'm sure viewers can pick up on, which is much more lovely than my Christmas tree Pikachu. We need the Pikachu. I should bring it next time. But
The Santa
is in my sister's office, and she is a mental health counselor. So that will actually get into some of what we talk about today
Correct.
as it relates to digestion. But she's over at Willow Counseling. This is Irene Covington's office. Big shout out and thank you to
Thank you, Irene.
her for letting us use her amazing, lovely space. Thank you for that. So something that I think is really important that is, you didn't know this before.
I did not.
Yeah.
No.
I think most people don't know this, that it's funny to say, like, you're literally an asshole. Like you start
Everyone's
life,
origin story is asshole.
You are the sperm launched into the egg, and that evolves into what's called a deuterostome, which is the type of creature that humans start as, which is a butthole that then turns into a butthole and a mouth. And then from there, everything else evolves
And synthesizes.
Exactly. There comes your spinal cord along that mouth to butthole, which makes sense, right? And if you think about where that is on yourself, you're like, oh, damn, okay. And I just think it's so profound to consider when you start to learn about how impactful digestion is to your overall well-being. And
Because quite literally, you are a digesting being to start with.
yes, you are a machine of that variety from the get-go. So we want to start by talking about what is digestion. And in looking it up, you'll see that it starts with your mouth, and I would argue that it actually starts with your eyes. I think I've heard this somewhere before. It might have been with Huberman, but I thought of this because you think of salivating, right? And I don't know how much you experimented with like flavor profiles prior to getting super into coffee. In terms of like food and like really mindful eating and slowly experiencing your dish and that kind of thing. But your perception, the colors on the plate, your atmosphere, you worked in the restaurant business for a hot minute. Like if you're in a shithole restaurant, like your food will probably taste worse unless it's like your uncle's kitchen and you know it's good and you grew up there. Like, you know what I mean? Like that stuff really impacts
perception can inform your experience.
Right.
Pretty
So
profoundly, for
your
sure.
digestion process really starts in your brain and your eyes. Then you ingest something into your mouth where you salivate, you have a bunch of enzymes, you break your food down, you chew, right? The mastication of actually chewing things well, which interestingly enough, has a big impact on your facial structure. If you have kids that only eat oatmeal and yogurt, they have a lot of oddities in their facial structure. Teeth get super crooked. Like I used to have a crazy snaggle tooth. I wish I would have had more chicken bones to chomp on as a young blood. Then we're moving through the esophagus. right? Down the snaky trail into the stomach, which is not where everyone says like, oh, my stomach. It's like, those are your intestines, brother.
Yeah. But more aggressive enzymes then come into the fray.
Yep. Churning and burning into your small intestine, where the bulk of your absorption processes are happening. Then out into your large intestine, and then rectum, out of that same butthole that you started out as.
Yes.
So that's like the short and skinny of
not the long and thick version.
But of what it is. Why does it matter so much? Have you ever had like digestive issues?
Not in a traditional sense, thankfully. But it matters because it's something that's, I think, taken for granted, like across the board. Very few people take inventory of how do they feel after every meal? How do they feel from the start of the day to the end of the day? What is their motility like, their frequency and quality of bowel movements? I mean, it's a shitty subject, but but it's necessary. It is a metric for your health and well-being that I think most people just disregard. It's like, oh, well, it's going to happen. The stuff entering my body is going to get digested some way, somehow. It's going to leave my body some way, somehow.
Yep.
But there really never is a ton of dialogue around optimization. How the quality of your life can be improved if certain characteristics are better managed with better care. So that's why ultimately it's important. It is the most basest necessity to keep you alive other than breathing. Yeah. But beyond that very cursory call out, most people are like, no, it's just what it is.
Yeah, I eat to stay alive, and I just like you figure out a way to eat something to just like
sustain.
Yeah, at least keep your baseline function happening.
Or the other side of the spectrum is purely, cerebral emotional. Like, oh, I just love to eat this.
Sure.
Like, I want to have this awesome dining culinary experience.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
But it's what happens on a chemical level, on a lifestyle management level, on a what is the overall aggregate of the things that you're consuming level. A lot can play to your advantage or your disadvantage, and that's never really talked about, in our opinion.
Yeah, I think too. I don't know. I don't know the statistics on this, but I feel like most people that I talk to have some degree of like a digestive issue. And I'm not talking about like IBS and having things that feel more extreme. I mean, just like, oh, I can't eat that. Yeah. Oh, this does that to me.
With me.
Yeah. And there's such a high degree of that, which is a tragic thing in America. I think it has a lot to do with our processes and just the corporate approach of food as a whole, just and how humans don't really work on that level, sadly, which leads to a lot of that stuff. And people that go away to Japan or Italy or to, some kind of coastal city, they're in Greece and they're like, I could eat everything. And everything was so much more agreeable. And, what you don't consider with those things are the other lifestyle things happening while you are in those places.
Sure.
You're not working, probably. You're on vacation of some flavor, right? You might be sleeping better because you're like doing stuff that's just enjoyable. So the big things that have, that we want to touch on in terms of how potent your digestion is or isn't are going to be your sleep,
stress,
your traumas, both current and unresolved, your frequency of eating, right? And then like the demands, like, are you training or are you just getting by doing what you have to in your life?
Sure.
Right. Do you have extra physical demands that are going to call for a higher nutritional burn and feeding schedule?
Yeah. Sure.
So are you sleeping? And what happens if you don't sleep?
If you don't sleep, a lot of things can go awry when it comes to digestion. Your hunger and satiety signals are all over the place. Depending on the individual, you could be eating less, you could be eating more. Your propensity for a certain type of food, good or bad, may change depending on sleep deprivation.
Yep.
So a lot of that can have a lot of negative downstream effects.
Similar to like having a few too many cocktails, that decision, right, impairment that you're like, ooh, I'm going to go for the extra slice of cake.
For sure.
Like,
And that's a great way to put it too, because sleep deprivation quite literally is an impairment in terms of efficacy, performance, mental acuity, decision making. It is a toxic thing to the body. So 100%.
Fun little sleep tip: lay on your left side. It will help with gastric emptying. So just the position of your stomach at the evening, like strikes, you just had your last meal, whatever, you're doing your thing. Try to sleep on your left side for a week. See if you don't get any change in.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And some of that motility that you were talking about.
Yeah. And with that too, a lot of it comes down to movement. Like your insides are based around being efficient under more movement. And as a society, and we've called this out countless times, and we're going to call it out countless times again, is we as a society, especially in Western culture, have adopted so much more of a sedentary lifestyle that wreaks havoc on digestion as well, because our moving things through the various core components of our digestive tract requires a certain amount of movement. Now, mind you, if you just keep packing yourself to capacity, things will move through the system just out of necessity.
Sure.
But it's designed to work efficiently under movement. So that's why you'll see us or other people definitely recommend that if you can spare 15, 20 minutes after you eat, walk around, keep things moving, and that will ultimately help with digestion, where it's not going to be as savory or as efficient if you just are constantly sitting down, eating, and then never moving beyond that.
Yeah. Also, blood sugar levels will get much more regulated with a little bit of movement.
Absolutely.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick just spoke about a study talking about doing 10 body weight squats and how much more potent that was than even a 20-minute walk post meal for regulating that blood sugar level. And getting movement. The other piece of that I think is really valuable is which will lead into some of the more trauma related stuff, in my opinion, is pressure management and lack thereof. So a lot of people I work with in the PRI space can't breathe. It's like one of the first things that I'm looking at, poking at your ribs and whatever. If you can't breathe well, all of the pressure or lack thereof is not making it your body's ability to move stuff through you any easier. In fact,
about manipulating intra-abdominal pressure.
True. Yes. But even just from a existing baseline, people inherently breathe pretty shallowly. And I'm not suggesting that you have this all the live long day.
Sure.
But there should be a natural full expanding quality to your inhale and a full closure of your exhale, right? That is going to add a lot to that motility. And your anxiety. Yeah. Which...
Oh, well, stress management is crazy all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, you could thwart that any number of ways, but I'm sure you'd be a big proponent of breath work, yoga, meditation, things that are lifestyle interventions when you have a high stress career or you do have unresolved trauma or other things that are plaguing you in a stress, anxiety, or compromised digestive lifestyle.
Yeah, I think as somebody who struggles with anxiety disorders, my propensity is, if I'm feeling really, really anxious, is to not eat. Some people will operate in a different way, and they'll binge on the other side of things. As a means of comforting. I get too wiggly butterflies in the stomach, and I'm like, everything feels like it stops. Sure. So that's not good. That's not good for my ability to recover, to get the nutrients and things that I need. So making sure that stuff gets managed and worked on outside of my training and all these other aspects of my life is really important, because we're looking at the bird's eye of leveling up across the board, right? And so that's where things like mental health counseling, different types of therapies are really, really impactful and profound. Sure. Not to say that, you're lactose intolerant because you have some unresolved trauma, but there is a clear I mean, who can't relate to that?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about being like nervous, anxious, stressed, worried, whatever, you don't do well with food. Like you want to throw up, right? Why is that a result of those types of emotions happening? Like,
yeah, it's a fault in what they call the gut-brain axis, and it's just higher cortisol levels. And I hate the overuse of the word cortisol lately, but this is where it's actually fully valid.
Yeah.
And everyone, mind, body are going to respond differently to high stress or unresolved trauma. And unfortunately, people might not even know that's the cause.
Sure.
You know, whether it be just being naive or in denial or avoidant and or actually having it truly be repressed and they don't know.
Sure.
So yeah, whether it be stress anxiety management through more holistic means, you know, like I said, breath work, meditation, yoga, or actually doing the harder work of let someone get in there with you and be like, this is what actually is happening.
Sure.
And, you know, it's quite a deviation, but while it's all wraps around is all of these things can compromise your relationship with food, how you digest your food, and ultimately the baseline of your health.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. It's really wild. Like, I don't know when I feel like it fully clicked for me, the idea of like, okay, I just had this day. Right. And there was a cost. I had to shell out energy. I had to use parts of me. I had to do things, whether I trained hard, whatever things were on my plate that day. And then you think about, what do I want to like rebuild with? And when people talk about, hey, have you seen a picture of yourself 7 years ago? You're not the same person, like on a cellular level, right? Like that's a new Daniel in that picture. What have you been like rebuilding with? And so that adage of like, you are what you eat is, I mean, I don't like things that are that ultimatum and, you know, blanketed because it's not that simple, but
there's credence to it regardless.
It is
quality in, quality out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like a thing to be mindful of, like, and it ends up attaching itself a lot to, I think, to self-worth, right? Like, what do you think you're worth putting back in? How do you manage that relationship with your food
and the budgeting of resources? You know,
man, it really gets so much more complex than just like, hey, just eat broccoli and this and whatever, because it's not that simple. Like food is cultural, food is emotional, food is communal. Like there's so much that happens around food that you can't just treat it as like this, you know, black and white thing, but it still doesn't change the fact that you need to take that responsibility and like find the things that work for you. Have you done any type of like food testing, allergy testing, things like that?
I personally have not, but there are several ways to test, all of which around like your blood and antigen and white blood cell responses to certain things. And you can go on a practitioner level. There's also at-home testing kits to do it. But I think the first line of that defense is just having some sort of intentional awareness around, hey, I ate this, I feel fine, like a check-in with yourself. Some people know outright, like lactose intolerance, or if you have like celiac, you're going to know if, you know, wheat or rye or barley is like fucking up their inside. But for most people that don't have a large malady like that, I mean, it could just be this, what seems innocuous, causing inflammation, digestive problems,
bloating, gas.
I think the first line of defense, even before testing, is just like, do I feel okay? And do I feel the quality of my air quote okay change when I eat this way or at this time? You know, there's not. So you brought up like meal frequency earlier, and again, there's not really data to support that a infrequent meal or a frequency of meals necessarily will change your digestive or metabolic state. But I mean, we're talking about the lifestyle component then too, because if you don't have a healthy relationship with when and how often you're eating, that can also compromise your digestion. So academically, no, like if you eat one meal a day versus 10 a day, technically that shouldn't change your digestion too much, but the choices around
Sure.
those frequencies is going to be
probably
vast.
change, yeah.
That's what will change.
If you eat at 8:45 p.m. because that's your first meal and the first time that you have available to feed yourself,
Sure.
your options are different. You're less likely to want to cook. You're
Correct.
That's the things you're talking about. Yeah. Versus like, does it actually matter? Well,
yeah. What about you? What's your relationship with food like? And have you explored the means of what you're sensitive to?
Food is an interesting one for me. I have probably, this is one of the areas that I feel like I have the hardest time overcoming the feeling of like being okay with overeating. So you know this, I'm trying to put on weight. The way to do that is to take in more calories than I'm burning, right?
Yes.
And so I need to be in that caloric surplus at the end of the day. And that means eating more than I am used to, eating more than my body homeostatically feels like, hey, you're satiated, like you're good.
Sure.
And then passing that.
Yeah.
There is a big block for me. And I think there are other components to it that are probably tied in childhood stuff or whatever, self-image things, whatever, that I need to explore. But I think, all in all, like having that day in, day out mentality of really trying to appreciate what you're putting into yourself as a means of like an investment, right?
Yeah.
The same way that you do with your training, like the same way you do with your finances, probably. Like those little things compound. So those little like adjustments, tweaks that you can make to like level up your stuff throughout the day are going to be the most profound way to shift things.
And in terms of, say, the quality of decision making or just the quality of nutrients, how have you seen that shift change in terms of the quality of your digestion? And how does that affect your day to day?
Yeah, for sure. So if I am hyper focused on work and business and other things outside of managing my food well, I mean, for a long time, I worked in a lot of different spaces that it was so culturally normal to like go out and eat. So I would get food on my way out into the city, for breakfast. We go out for lunch because that's what you do and you want that time and that break. And then you grab something on the way home because you're working late and you're going to get home at 9 p.m. and I'm not going to cook something and yada, yada, yada. So you become very accustomed to eating that way. And it's not good. You have no real idea what's like happening in the kitchen. Like you can go to good places, but it's so different than you making your own thing. And I think that's lost on a lot of people. It was lost on me. Like you have no idea. And it's not to think everyone that is out to get you or putting fucking pubes in your sandwich every time you know what I mean? But like, you really don't know. Like, did they wash their hands? Like just the likelihood of normal stuff. Did he sneeze? Is it just a human doing a thing and maybe something gross is a part of that? Like probably. So, you want to take more of the reins on this stuff. You have to start to prep meals, I think is the biggest thing. Anytime I eat a big breakfast, my day is already like way better. Yeah. My energy levels are higher. Everything is just more balanced. So when those things are out of whack, like I feel it.
When you have now made a shift to more intentional eating, do you see better patterns with digestion, inflammation, bloating, all that kind of stuff? Like Definitely. What's your experience?
Yeah, 100%. I think the more infrequent and scrambled you are on your food selection, like, hey, I'll just eat this time and then I'll figure it out like as it's coming up to you. That will sort of relay itself through your body, right? Like that's how you'll feel. Sure. That's how your energy will feel. Sporadic, right? Like, oh, here's this big burst of whatever. Whereas having a little bit more regularity, I mean, literally in going to the bathroom, like timing of that, which should be just a normal thing. Like
and regular at that. Right.
Like, hey, you ate. By this point, there should probably be like an exit strategy for your body. And then here, let's keep this train rolling.
And also too, for those listening / watching, I mean, if you're not at least getting one, if not two movements a day, you're not digesting as well as you could be.
Yeah. And so there's room for improvement to feel better. Or the people that are, spraying out puddles,
Sure.
hot snakes. Like there's things that are like, oh, that's funny and disgusting and whatever, like someone ripping ass and it makes you want to like jump out the side of it. Like,
but it's indicative of other problems that need solutions just the same.
Yeah.
That's not just what it is.
Like, oh, I ate some Taco Bell and that's rotten. Maybe. But if that's your norm and you like are constantly
regardless
like
of what you're consuming,
station, that's bad. That is a symptom of something going on that like you shouldn't have to deal with that. That's not you're missing out on your body's ability to be able to uptake the stuff that you need. And
for sure.
So it's always a adjusting game, right? Like learning, growing, finding what works. But it's a necessary one.
So we're talking foods. In relation to digestion. What are your thoughts on fiber?
Man, who has that? What is fiber? I know nothing of this word. I mean, really though, like it's something that I think most people are very clearly not getting enough of.
Right. Underutilizing to a staggering degree, especially because we'll hammer on about the processed boxed foods, fast food stuff. I mean, the dietary fiber in those are incredibly low.
Or it's almost like anti.
Yeah. So it's tough. And for those, if you don't know, I mean, dietary fiber, and soluble fiber is what helps your body make larger stool and move it through your body quicker, which is what you want.
The lattice to move the waste out.
Otherwise, you run the risk of constipation, blockages, backing up, and then, God forbid it gets worse than that. Then you're not really having a fun time with life.
I would say so.
In terms of fiber, easy one would be leafy greens, fruits, whole grains, not refined grains.
Popcorn is a great insoluble fiber. One of the best.
So, it's necessary and it's overlooked. And unfortunately, without intention behind your food choices, you don't really realize what you're not getting.
Yeah. So I want to do a little recap so that we can sort of step into the next phase. But we understand more or less digestion, the process of it starting visually, through the mouth, through the rest of us, yada, yada. We know that there are a lot of lifestyle factors that will make or break your digestion. If your sleep is shit, it's going to impact that. If it's really good, you're probably going to make some better choices, right? We know that there are ways to test for things that you may be unable to digest or consume safely for your own body and genes and all of these things. The better way to start with that is to just start to be mindful, maybe a food diary, a note on your phone. I would say 20 minutes is a good point of check-in post finishing eating, not like, hey, I'm halfway through, let me set a timer for 20 minutes. Like you have concluded the meal, forks are down, whatever. Check in with yourself after that. Are you like feeling sticky? Like, do you feel tired? Do you feel sluggish, energized? Like what's happening? Not good or bad, what's happening? Be curious about it. If that's not clear enough for you, probably better off getting blood work done with dietitian, nutritionist, combo team. Don't just like listen to people that say that you're going to go carnivore or eat fruit only or whatever. Like work with somebody who's going to check your body. Don't have somebody hold a milk capsule in your hand and push on it. Those are inaccurate ways for you to get the actual information that you need. If that's worked for you and you're insulted by that, I'm sorry, I suppose, but it's just, it's
not the clearest picture and it's not going to be the most accurate representation of what may or may not be going on.
Yes.
And also too, not to undermine any of that, but a lot of it is what we talked about is just checking in with yourself. Like you may not need to go through all of those tests
For sure.
unless something really is askew and you're just confused all the time. Like, why do I not feel normal? Then please, get tested. And that sounds terrible, but get your blood tested, get your food allergies and sensitivities tested. But yeah, a lot of this comes down to most people just don't even think about this facet of their well-being and take a mental inventory or like you said, journal or anything like that. Any sort of personal feedback. People are so lost in the sauce of the grind of their life. And don't get me wrong, like especially in Western society, that is most people's lives.
Yeah.
It would be a luxury to stop and be like, how am I feeling right now? And that's not lost on us.
And I think something that we've not said yet is that the other side of the coin is like the rich influencer who documents every meal, tells you what is good and bad for you, which is absolute bullshit.
Right.
And is unrealistic. They're like, hey, I had this $95 meal with this $160 olive oil, and I ate.
It's not practical.
And then I sat around and then I prayed for this and it's like, okay, so you're cool. You made this your job, whatever, like good for you. But that's not real life for most people.
Correct.
And so it goes to this other extreme. You're either just like eating to get by and you're like, fuck it, I don't even have the space to consider what this is doing to me because that holy shit, no. Or you're so like, this water, like, like get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so
find
there is a middle ground.
There's for sure a middle ground. Ronnie and I, we do not eat like everything is not farm raised, purely organic.
Right.
No, but it's making the best decisions that you have at your disposal with the quality of nutrients that you have access to, both socioeconomically, regionally, and really just trying to get the most out of that, because all of the decisions and the suggestions that we make are just trying to make tiny little positive effects that compound over time with other good decisions that you're making.
Good little recap and points to touch back on. Let's talk a little bit about like the different types, really a healthy diet and what will lead to probably better digestion as a whole is going to be that has variety. You mentioned a big one, which is like fiber, right? So we spoke about proteins, fats, and carbs, but that doesn't really super describe the variety of like colors that you want to eat and different types of foods and what's happening from those things.
Yeah, fruits, leafy greens, not only are they going to be beneficial on a micronutrient level, but also just on a fiber level too. They're going to help you digest better. As a society, we have, refined our grains, so they're no longer as high in fiber content, if any. So like our cereals and our breads, they no longer move through us the same way. So, but you can, again, if you want to pay premium, you can find whole grain equivalents to all of these things. Rice, bread, cereal. That will actually be a benefit to your digestion rather than a hindrance. You're not going to get too much in terms of a benefit from your proteins, even though they are very necessary.
Yeah.
They should be a cornerstone of your diet. And then beyond that, it's just trying to do your best, without campaigning for this every turn, but it needs to be closer to a whole food diet than a processed diet.
Yeah.
We ourselves, fully transparent, we do also rely on processed things, our supplements, our protein bars.
Of course.
Things like that. We do have indulgences as well. They are going to be highly processed foods.
Yeah.
We're not monks, but the more you can lean into single ingredients or whole foods, your body, all of your chemical processes, all of your digestion, all of them will improve.
Yeah, and we'll thank you. You'll feel better, clearer, all the good stuff. Are you a kimchi eater?
I am not, but I like this little segue into fermented foods and pre and probiotics. Playing with the gut microbiome has definitely been more vogue lately over the past couple of years. It's not fully understood, and we're at the very bottom of that totem pole. Yeah,
there's a lot of folks that will say like, oh, your leaky gut is why you're depressed. And all I'll say is like, be careful.
Yeah, and you're going to be chasing shadows for a while.
Yeah.
But again, too, to that same notion, there is something to it.
It's part of your body. It's going to impact you.
Yeah. And depending on what flora you have in there, in your gut, what's allowed to survive and what's just slaked off is going to be completely dependent on what you're sending through your digestive tract on top of it.
Yeah.
So for me, I have not done too much in the way of fermented foods. I do like kimchi, but I don't do it regularly. It's more of like a Asian food indulgence, you know, some nice Korean barbecue, things like that.
Sauerkraut?
I abhor it, honestly. I know it's integral to your
to my
upbringing,
existence,
to your entire genetic background, but it's just not my thing.
Pickled onions.
Pickles is fine. Pickled cucumbers I'm good with.
Pickled onions not happening?
It's okay, but I mean...
Man, a pink pickled onion with eggs and arugula.
Chef's kiss.
Fucking tremendous. Jeff Uncle Joey calling from the ether.
But yeah, the main things when it comes to supplementing digestion that we're alluding to is your fermented foods, your pre-probiotics, and something in the enzyme family to help break down things. A lot of the tases, you know. But I personally, again, thankfully, knock on wood, I don't have too much in the way of digestive issues. But I cannot say the same for most everyone else. What about you? What's your experience?
Yeah, I feel like I was such a like picky eater as a kid, and then started to just really enjoy the novelty of trying new things. So I like kimchi. I like sauerkraut. I like things that are just like, you know, funkier, I guess, sometimes. I like goat kefir. Like, I like things that are different types of flavor profiles. And I think the more variety in my structured diet that I have, so I don't sound like I'm saying opposite things to myself. If you eat that's just like so haphazardly, like, oh, I'll just have this for breakfast from here and blah, 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 blah. There's so little routine and structure to that. Whereas if I know that my breakfast is like usually going to be comprised of a protein, a carb, and a fat, and maybe some kind of pre or probiotic-esque thing.
Are you a booch guy?
Not really. I get a little skeevied by that slug that tries to crawl down your throat at the end of the bottle.
Booch meaning kombucha, for those that didn't catch that reference.
Yeah. I like a couple of the flavors, but man, those slugs in there, just mentally, I'm like...
Yeah, texture. Yeah, that's why I'm also not a boba fan. I like
boba, yeah, but I don't know. The sea moss slug that is attached to the kombucha bottle scares me. He's a strong guy. Yeah, things like that is it's
so fermented foods is what you generally rely on the most.
Yeah, if I'm gonna try to if I'm really like getting after pre and pro stuff, and I know if I'm feeling like, oh, my digestion is like not great, I will actively start to add those things back in.
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, it's more so I have not been plagued with it too bad. I mean, coffee as things move has been a benefit, but also apple cider vinegar has been good. L-glutamine as well as a way of like being before meals. It generally will help digest things faster and more cleanly.
Are you a yogurt boy?
I am.
Yogurt in
I am a big Chobani guy.
Okay, so there's some, you know, some guys in there, some bacteria,
probiotic guys in there.
Yeah,
so hasn't been bad.
Supplements, I've used very few that are like. There was one from a company called Umzu.
Okay,
that has some pretty like grabby commercials on YouTube that are like,
but again, they're just usually a stack of enzymes that helps, you know, or another one that people utilize. They lean into it for weight loss, even though it's just a digestive aid. It would be like berberine. But beyond that, it's never been a necessity for me. Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah, so I think something to consider if you feel like you are eating pretty well across the board, but you're not getting the most out of your food, you might need some change in some of the bacteria that you have cooking inside.
So speaking of cooking inside, let's take it from the south to the north. I mean, some of the diseases can be still rooted in the stomach and digestion, but overall stress and disease and things like that. What are your thoughts on how that can impair digestion?
I mean, yeah, across the board, nothing gets better with you being perpetually stressed and mismanaged.
Sure.
You know, your blood pressure, your outlook on life, right? Like your heart function, all of the things. Digestion is not off of that list. So, it goes back into your ability to rely on yourself and make good decisions is like you start battling yourself. And therein it becomes this cyclic thing where now one arm is biting the other and it bites back. And right. So you have someone who is sleep deprived, we'll say, that, just feels like I just need to have this coffee cake and whatever thing to kick off the day.
Yeah.
And then their energy takes a huge dump by like 10 a.m. And so in comes the monster or whatever, or they don't eat at all and they just have to work. And so they put in
coffee for breakfast,
a Zin, or we go and rip a dart outside or whatever. Right. And like, okay. And then,
we should not even talk about smoking, what that can do to your fucking digestion.
I mean, yeah.
If you care about your digestion, just stop smoking.
Sure. Or yourself. Yeah. Just that's I think a given.
Yeah.
Which is,
I know it's one of the most addictive things on earth, but again, if you can rise above that level of, cognition and look at a more aerial view, it's like that is fucking you up.
Yeah. That's a hard one to put at the pros and cons list. It's like pro.
Feels good for a split second.
Yeah. Cons. Yeah, it goes on and on and on. You had mentioned a really fascinating and horrific correlation to trauma experienced early on as a kid. I'm assuming.
Early stage exposure to either violent or sexual trauma, unfortunately, is a very unfortunate precursor to both like irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel disease.
Sure.
So it quite literally could be setting you up for something like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, which is just terrible. So unresolved trauma that's not a sensitive, that's a very sensitive subject. It's not an easy subject to go through, and everyone's going to be experiencing it and managing it in a different way.
Yeah.
But that is something that not only could be keeping you sick mentally, it could be keeping you sick physically too, with a high likelihood.
Yeah. I think it's very normal, sadly, to have a very flawed relationship with food in our day and age.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that I still, and if you would look at me and think, okay, he's like skinny, like there's no worry about, you can just eat whatever you want,
sure,
blah, 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 blah. I still will have internal dialogue battles where if I'm like eating Dominoes, where I'm like, this is going to make me sick. Something that just is unhealthy about that interaction internally where like, and that's very like minimal in terms of intensity that other people deal with, from body dysmorphia to bulimia to anorexia to whatever types of things. And this is not for us to suggest that if you've experienced some type of trauma that you're working on or not, or whatever, that you're going to be cursed with this thing. It just is associated with a higher likelihood that there will be some type of thing attached to that for you,
which is terrible. And that's such a shitty correlation. It makes perfect sense.
It does make sense,
but it's just a very unfortunate reality.
Yeah.
And then that's also just not taking in consideration that plenty of people have other just diseases, whether it be genetically or that they manifest in early or later years. Like, I mean, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis are two really big ones that, I mean, can plague people for their entirety of their lives.
Yeah. Not
fully understand how it manifests.
Yep.
Difference being that like ulcerative colitis is just in your lower intestine. It's like a full inflammation there. Whereas Crohn's, that can affect just one or several patches anywhere from your mouth to your colon.
Yeah.
And managing that just is a fucking bear.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so much empathy and compassion and things for folks that have to fight that fight. And I am very thankful that that's not my battle.
Yeah. All that being said is, I think the underpinning here is that your digestive health and what all that feels like and manifests like in your lifestyle should be more intentional in how it's managed or even thought about.
Yeah.
Again, not everyone's dealt the same deck of cards. Like I said, if you do have stresses and traumas and lifestyles that affect that, completely understandable, but you have to find a way to manage it just the same.
Yep.
You can't just say, hey, I'm better. No, but you need to find help and you need to shuffle the resources to try to improve that part of your life, because it's going to be a losing battle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really important component to sort of land on for a little while. Is it's a good idea to seek out some type of help, whether it be counseling. If you feel like intuitively there is some component that needs resolution or is compromising your day-to-day functionality, if you're waking up super anxious, I guarantee your digestion's like trashed from that.
Sure.
And again, it becomes this self-eating machine that like, where's the actual problem? Well, it's sort of in a lot of places. So let's just pick one thing and go after it a little bit.
Right.
Changing up like how you treat yourself with your food can be really scary. It can be very triggering. It can be a lot of things. So working with somebody who can help you navigate that process is like it's the same as working with you to like, hey, I want to get stronger. Could I figure it out alone? Yeah. But, and am I going to have to change what I'm doing currently because it's not making me strong now? So, right. Yes. It's the same principle and same idea. Like,
whenever you enlist a professional or a counselor or a therapist of any sort, you are leaning on their expertise to synthesize down a bunch of loftier concepts to something unique to you that gets you help or progress in the fastest way possible with the least amount of resistance.
Yeah.
Rather than, chat GPTing yourself as a therapist or, trying a bunch of stuff that you found online, whether it be holistic or seemingly academic.
Sure.
Just starting with one thing, one focus, fixing that, and then moving on rather than trying to fix a bunch of things all at once, which we all try to do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good thing. I think the core home run is like power to the player. You got to own this process, try to stay curious about what's happening within yourself, try new things. And if none of that stuff is working, then get some help
and just listen to your fucking tummy.
Yeah. She knows all.
Yeah. And it's down to instinct, down to health, down to overall well-being. Just listen to that bitch.
Hell yeah. Tummy brothers for life. Until next time, y'all.
On the long and thick.
Toodaloo.